Blog Talk Radio.
Live from the nation's capital, it's Quintessential Listening, Poetry, with host Dr. Michael Anthony Ingram.
My name is Michael Anthony Ingram. I'd like to welcome you to Quintessential Listening Poetry. I'm here tonight with a very, very, very special guest, Mr. Quinn Flanagan, all the way from Ontario, Canada. He's my special guest tonight, and I am extremely excited about him being here. Ryan, are you there?
I am here. Thanks for having me, Michael.
Oh, yes, not a problem. Not a problem. Let me ask you a question. As I read through your bio, and you can find Ryan's bio in terms of his work on the episode information page, you are extremely prolific.
I try to stay busy.
I know, I can tell. You've published over 50 books. I mean, it's incredible, just incredible. Do you think that you were born to be a poet?
Yeah, it's hard to say. I don't know if anyone's born to be. I definitely had an inclination. And I found that out when I was younger. You just find that you're better at certain things, and writing was one of the things that I could always do.
All right. Well, let me ask this question. It's a very general question. Why do you think poetry is important? You've written so much of it. Why do you think it's important?
I think it gives people a voice, a way to express themselves outside of everyday life, where often things are so constricted that you don't get to honestly express yourself. And I think poetry offers a medium for people to do that, and also to connect with other people who are trying to do the same thing. So that's why I think poetry is important.
Well, in terms of the initial spark, is there one incident that said, hey, I love this? One spark of interest that made you just say, this is what it is I need to be doing?
Well, I wrote my first published poem when I was 10, and
wow.
And so after that, it got some reception. It was published in the newspaper, and you had to keep reciting it. And so I thought, okay, well, people are interested in it, but it, of course, terrified me. I was only 10, and I had to keep reciting it, and I did it so many times, like for the Lions Club and all these people, that I actually just eventually forgot the poem. So I get up there to recite it, and I just have a blank slate, and that didn't go over so well. So after that, it was more writing poetry and not reciting it.
Well, we are not going to keep the audience waiting. I'd like you to begin by sharing some of your work.
Sure. I'll start tonight with one for my buddy. I know he's waiting to call in, Catfish McDarris, and you know him. He's a great writer, fantastic guy.
Yes.
And we were talking about he lives in Wisconsin. I guess they have hockey games there that he goes to, like my wife and I do here. And we were talking about the Zamboni. So this poem's called Zamboni Heartland. The man driving the Zamboni has to watch the ice. The man catching a ride behind him fires a T-shirt cannon into the crowd during the second intermission. We're at a hockey game cheering for no one. The home team is just the away team with less talent. A lot of people are cheering for the away team. Everyone loves a winner. The scoreboard is most unfriendly if you are rooting for the home team. I begin to wonder if they will even come out for the third period. But it is a fun night out, like the movies used to be when the movie house bigs were still making movies and not just money. You can do both, but everyone just wants the money. And my wife catches a T-shirt from the cannon, hugs me with an honest happiness. The Zamboni doing ever tighter circles to make sure it has gotten the entire surface of the rink. My friend Catfish in Milwaukee says they go to games down there as well, that they also have the guy on the back of the Zamboni shooting his T-shirt cannon into the crowd. He tells me he accidentally stepped on a mother and her small child and had to give up the T-shirt to make amends. The home team is first back out on the ice for the third period. I feel this is a decision they might regret.
Wow. Speaking of Catfish, I believe that he's on the line. Hold on one moment.
Yep.
Catfish, are you there?
Guys.
Hello, Catfish.
Hey, man. What's up? Hi, Michael. Hi,
for you.
Ryan.
Hey, Cat.
I call him Rye. Like Rye Scooter. That's what.
Yes.
Hey, Mike. When you get to know Ryan well enough, you can call him Rye.
Okay.
Yeah, we're Ryan.
All right,
we're Ryan.
Yeah. Yeah. We took a turkey and some canned goods to the Milwaukee Brewers Stadium, and for the Hunger Task Force, and they gave us two tickets to see Milwaukee Admirals and play Texas next month in hockey. I don't even care for it really, but my wife likes it, so something to get out of the house in the winter and stuff. Can't be at home writing poetry and stories all the time.
Well, speaking of poetry, do you have a question for Rye? Do you have a question for him about his work?
I just wonder when you have time to do anything else, man. He's so prolific. I mean, I write a lot. I write every day, and all the time, but almost every time I go on Facebook, Ryan's at another site, man. He's like a poetry machine, man. More than Bukowski, more than anybody. Like Lynn Lifshin used to be. I wrote a poem about her. You guys know Lynn Lifshin, right?
Yep.
Yes.
How prolific she was. I wrote a poem about her that I was making love to her, and she was trying to write, and she says, "Get out of my light, Catfish! Get out of my light!" That was it.
Oh, Catfish. Well, Ryan, answer that question. What makes you the poetry machine?
It's probably like spree writing. You don't do it all the time. Obviously, you have to do a lot of shoveling this time of year. But when I do have time to write, I sit down probably 6-7 hours and could usually crank out about 25 to 28 poems. So when you're doing it in spree sessions more than anything, whenever you have the time.
Oh, wow.
So
let me ask this question. Okay. How does a poem begin for you, with an idea, a form, or an image? How do you go about creating it?
Probably just an image, and if there is an idea, it's only just a really loose idea, because I'll usually sit down with, put on some good music, and then sit and have some wine and beer and just let it flow, just write whatever you want. I don't concentrate too much on stanzas or your words or what you're doing and the structure too much at all. I just let it go, and then I'll look at it later and fix that stuff up. But when writing, I just let it go.
Well, Catfish, you have any other comments for Ryan?
Just that I'm a big fan of his, and he's a few years younger than me, quite a few, and I know he's gonna make it to the top.
Oh yeah,
I have no doubt about it.
Thanks so much.
I know you will too, Michael.
Well, thank you, my friend. We all will.
I know you.
We'll all make it to the top. All make it to the top of this stuff.
Make it to the top.
Make it.
Everybody
to the top.
has their own top, though. So.
Yes, right. That's right. Whatever that top is, we're all gonna make it. So I want to thank you for calling in, Catfish.
Okay, thank you, Michael. Bye,
Thanks,
Ryan.
Cat.
Continue to listen.
All
All right. All right. We've got another caller, Ryan.
Okay.
Area code 301. 710. You're on the air.
Hi, Michael. Hi, Ryan. This is Diane, and I have Ethan here, and Thelma's in the window.
Welcome, Marianne. Do you have a question for Ryan? Our star of the hour.
Let's see. If you've ever experienced writer's block, what do you do to break it?
Good question.
If I have experienced it, I just don't do it for a while, and then I find that I get you get itchy and you get that feeling again. But I find that it's better not to push it. Then I don't try to do any other things to get around it. I just let it work out whatever the problem is.
Yeah, thanks.
All right, just don't do it. Just don't do it. I can understand that. Any other questions, Marianne? I want to thank you for calling in. Anything else?
I think, Ethan, do you have a question for Ryan?
I just can't. I can't believe you can sit down and write poems for like 7 hours. Like, to me, that's not even human.
He's a lot younger than you are.
It's actually very tiring.
That's a comment, not a question. Although, if you can find a way to answer it, that would be great.
How I do that?
Yeah. How do you do that?
Lots of wine or beer, but
okay.
And I often find that it's really draining. But the next day, I call it a recovery day. I feel really drained, and sometimes I don't always remember what I wrote. But yeah, you just kind of get in the zone, and then you just exhaust yourself, and then next day recover, do something else, and then back at it again, and just repeat the process.
Are you ever inspired so you have just one poem that you have to write, and it's just that one? Because that's my favorite way to write, when I'm inspired, which is very rare.
Yeah, that's the best way. Like if you have, it doesn't happen too often, but if you have like a specific note or a specific idea in mind that you've written down and you want to sit down and write that poem, that is really the best, most enjoyable way to do it.
All right. Well, I want to thank you, Ethan, and I want to thank Marianne for calling in. All right. Well,
yes,
Ryan?
Marianne, I have a poem for her here, actually.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's from her. It's from her site. The blog is. She had accepted this poem, so I wanted to read it tonight for her.
All right,
and it's
beautiful.
Poem for a Man Who Believes Push-Ups Will Save Him. He has seen one too many prison movies. Drops to the floor and gives 20 each time he feels overwhelmed. His counselor suggested this, and I ask him why his counselor doesn't do the push-ups, and he drops and gives me 20. It is hard to talk to a man like that. He is always either on his way down or his way up, counting out each sweaty offering. This man who believes push-ups will save him. And when he jumps back up, he is breathing heavily, with that alarming, red, massive heart attack face that you see on powerlifters as though they have been constipated for weeks and are crouching to try squeeze one out. Push-ups never saved anyone, not anyone in prison or any other way. But this one is a believer, and there is nothing you can do with a believer except try to not still be there when he gets back up to his feet. So that's for Marianne.
For Marianne.
Thank you.
All right. Let's take a brief break, and we'll be right back. All right. My name is Michael Anthony Ingram. This is Quintessential Listening Poetry. I am here tonight with Ryan Quinn Flanagan. If you'd like to call in and speak with Ryan, the telephone number is area code 646-787-1631. He's here to answer your questions as well as share his fantastic poetry. Let me ask you another question here, Ryan. All great writers have great writing influences. Who are some of yours, and what makes them great in your eyes?
Well, for short stories, it's Kafka. I love the Kafka short stories because he's so neurotic. It's crazy. Right. It's kind of the same thing with Newt Hampson's Hunger, awesome book. I'm a huge fan of Richard Brautigan. I love his humor. And Charles Bukowski, of course. John Fante's one of my favorite writers. And there's actually many today that are good, like Catfish, we just talked about. Marianne, Alexis, Kevin Ridgway. There's a bunch of writers at this place called The Frat that I know, and John Patrick Robbins, James Casey, Kevin Peary, Eliana, Alyssa. There's a whole bunch of good writers. So I look at them, and I'm influenced heavily by what's going on today. I think it's a really good scene.
All right. Well, share some more of your work. That's why we're here tonight, to hear your work. All right.
This one is a true story about being when I was in Midtown Detroit. It's called Silence of the Yams. Walking past this car in Midtown, I hear this man cussing out his passenger. When I looked inside, I realized his passenger was not a person at all, but a bag of yams. He was angry because it would not answer him, shaking it violently as though wringing its neck. Then he got out and heaved the bag of yams across the street, shouting many unsavory things, skidding his tires in the road as he sped off in anger. Detroit's an interesting place.
Yes, that is the city of Detroit. Anything happens. Yeah. Anything happens.
Yeah. My wife and I actually love the city of Detroit, but boy, it's different.
Well, please share another piece of your work.
Yep. This one's called Porky Pig Was an Exhibitionist. Even as a kid, I remember pointing it out. He wore a blue suit and a red bow tie, but no pants. And the babysitters and other kids would say, sure he wears pants. And whenever he came on the TV without his pants, they would scoff and say it was just a cartoon or that pigs do not wear pants, which was true enough. But this bugger even wore a blue cap on his head, but never any damn pants. You're telling me you could find a matching baseball cap and suit, but the pants were too much. Maybe Petunia liked it that way, but she sure as hell had a skirt, even matching red bows for her hair, but no one else could see it. That pig went al fresco for half a century while urinating in public was a crime. And this is not to say that I'm some sorry prude, just that a lot of good men went away while this porky son of a bitch without pants made the most of his Walt Disney patronage. Not a fan of Porky Pig.
Well, well, let me ask this question. And again, I hate to keep going back to the fact that you've written so much. What are some of the predominant themes of your work? If you had to really think about, what are some of the predominant themes?
Early on, I think there was a lot more writing about death. It's still there because deaths in the family affect you and close friends. And, I have a few poems like that here, but it's a lot more humor now. I like the one I just read, or Silence of the Yams. You tend to look at experiences and try to find small instances of humor in them instead of just, always being so drab about everything. Early on, I think I was much more concerned with death as an overarching theme, and now it's a lot more humor.
Okay. Well, where do you write?
I have an office upstairs.
Okay.
And yeah, I keep it totally separate from the rest of the house. And on days when I'm not writing, I don't go in there. Don't have anything to do with it. And on the days I'm writing, then you're totally in the office, and so that you're totally in that mindset and that space. And I find it's easier then to zone out for those 6 or 7 hours, like we were talking about.
Mm-hmm. Oh, wow. Well, what I'd like you to do is to share 2 of your works.
Sure.
Back to back.
I got 2 short ones here. So.
Okay.
One's called Combs Assume Hair. Any man that does not understand the geography of himself is simply the map of others. And the second one is called Miracles and Accidents. When I was 4 years old, my mother told me I was a miracle. When I was 11, my father told me I was an accident. If I had to choose, I'd be the accident with nothing expected and leave the miracles to Christ.
Share that one again. I like that one. Share that one again.
Sure. Miracles and Accidents. When I was 4 years old, my mother told me I was a miracle. When I was 11, my father told me I was an accident. If I had to choose, I'd be the accident with nothing expected and leave the miracles to Christ.
Wow. That's very powerful.
That is
very,
one of my
very
personal.
One of your personal favorites?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have one here too. I know we were talking before about mental health issues, and we're both involved in that.
Yes.
And it's a poem here. It was about my own experience. It was my second stint in the hospital. And it's coming out in a book by Kevin Ridgway, another great writer, and Dark Heart Press. But it's called Nurse at Health Sciences North, and it's about my experience. You find humility if you don't already have it. Life makes sure of that. And we shared a love of animals. She wore black cats on her scrubs and had a dragonfly tattooed on her ankle. I was withdrawn and broken, but she seemed to understand, rousing me to shower a few times a week, knocking on the yellow privacy curtain as if it were a door. I always appreciated that. Some small mercy. How she was older and how the other younger nurses seemed to hold that against her. The cutter in the next room not allowed a razor to shave, and how everyone was locked in their room whenever fights broke out on the unit. She never once asked me if I wished to harm myself. She could see it in my eyes. I always appreciated that she didn't ask. How she saw another human being and never just the illness.
You know,
that's that one.
Oh, as we talked about, the mental health issue is such an important one, and being able to write and or share your poetry in whatever form you choose to do it is so critical to be able to express, to get it out of your system in a way that is facilitative and conducive for your system, as to a way that's potentially negative for you. So yes.
Yeah, I think it's very, very healthy and therapeutic. And like I was saying earlier, where poetry offers you a venue to express yourself where you probably can't in everyday life. Mental illness is certainly there with a huge stigma in everyday life, but in poetry, you seem to have a blank slate where you can kind of air these things out. You know what I mean?
Oh yes, very much so. I agree. You know, all poets have several words that come up over and over again. Words or sentences that they just can't help but use in their work. What are 3 of your absolute favorite words to use? If maybe there are more.
Probably. I'd say broken comes up a lot.
Okay.
Probably sadness. And my actual favorite word has nothing to do with being broken or sadness. My favorite word in the whole of the English language is slapdash.
Slapdash.
Yeah, it's just a very whimsical word. I had a poem about it. I don't have it here, but that's actually my favorite word in the whole English language. I like slapdash. So.
Can you give us a reason why? I mean, it's not a word that you hear every day.
Yeah, I think that it's just so whimsical, and I just like that it's really whimsical and out there. I think in the poem I wrote that, if I had a kid, I would name him Slapdash, and he wouldn't have a boring name like Mohammed or John or all the, and then everybody would be jealous because he'd have a cool name like Slapdash.
Like Slapdash, right. Okay, all right then. All right. What style of poetry do you prefer? Is it freestyles, rhyming, haiku? I mean, or you do a little bit of everything?
I mainly do free verse, but I do experimental poetry sometimes. I enjoy that, just to mix it up sometimes. I don't write haiku personally, but one of my favorite writers is Basho. I love his haiku, and just for besides the beautiful things you can say with so little, it's a great lesson in economy of verse. If you pick up a Basho's books and read them, it's just amazing what he can say in 3 lines.
Tell us about your process. Is it pen and paper? I know you have your office. Is it the computer, notebooks? How do you write?
I have, when I write, it's on the computer now. When I was younger, it was pen to paper. Now the pen to paper is really just making notes. And sometimes when I'm not at the computer, I'll write whole poems out with pen and paper. But usually I try to work at the computer now. Because I also found, too, making notes that they would just end up everywhere. Or, like, you'd look at them a year later and it would say something and you'd go, what does that mean? And you couldn't remember where your thought process was.
Right. Again, as we think about poetry, what do you see as being the role of a poet in modern day society? What is it that we do? What do we give? Maybe we've already answered this question. Just want to ask it again.
Yeah, I think we're. It's funny, we're allowed to expose truths. I think that, like, if you said them in everyday language, people would probably not accept it as much, but they seem to accept it as a free form in poetry, that you're just kind of saying something, and then you have a way of sneaking those ideas in almost, and those truths or things that you can connect with on a different level that you probably can't just in normal conversation every day. So that's probably an important role of a poet.
Right. Well, please share 2 more of your works.
Sure.
2 or 3. I enjoy hearing your work, so as many as you like.
This one was published by Cultural Weekly, and Alexis, you know her, and another great writer, and this is for her. It's called It Never Rains When You Want It To. I kept a warm beer by the bed, just one, lying on top of the covers with cigarette burns all through them, listening to the loose ceiling fan. Total darkness. The curtains pulled open. The alarm clock turned around in boxer shorts with numerous green shamrocks on them. Picking old crumbs out of my chest hair and tossing them to the floor. It never rains when you want it to. I remember thinking that. And how the sink in the bathroom was plugged with coffee grinds. And how the interstate was close enough that I could hear all the 18-wheelers whoosh by. The dried chewing gum on the back of the headboard curling around my fingers like a lonely cat. Right. And this one's called Getting Word, and I guess this is one of the sadder ones where I was talking about earlier, the earlier theme of death that used to recur, especially in my earlier poetry. So it's called Getting Word. I get word that another old friend has died. Drugs again. When you never had many friends, these things add up. No one discovered him for over a week. The mother is inconsolable. I don't raise a glass anymore. There is nothing to celebrate. Not life or death or anything. Just these simple black keys here beside me bashing the next one out.
Wow. That's another very powerful one. The imagery was beautiful.
Thank you.
What are some of the prevalent ingredients that go into this concoction that we call a poem? What are some of the ingredients that need to go into creating a poem?
I think you originally you have an image or an idea that kind of connects with people, so that helps with communicating. Except in extreme experimental poetry, where you don't necessarily have that. So you have that basic idea that you start with, and then you can kind of wander with it. I always I call them wandering sections, or where you can just kind of flow off the original idea or the original image and see what happens, and you usually get a bunch of non sequiturs or strange images that you hadn't really thought about, and then kind of try to tie it back all together, but really loosely, not like a very predictable way, you know. And I think all those ingredients, when they tie into a nice poem at the end. If you can do those things, and then have it be completely relatable to someone in their life, and connect on some level, then I think you'll have a successful poem.
Well, let me ask this question. So when you complete a poem,
yeah.
Is it complete, or are you still tinkering with it? If you open up one of your books, would you start tinkering with any of your work still?
No. As soon as I write it, it's done. Besides editing for grammar and spelling, whatever's there is there. I never change anything. I don't censor myself in any way. So whatever I wrote that day is what is there. It's just the spelling and grammar that will be fixed, and the rest of it just stays the way that it came out. And I figure that's that moment in time, and that was your headspace. So I just keep it that way, and that's the most honest way I can do it.
All right then. Well, please share some more of your work, Ryan.
Sure. This one's called "It is Hard to Go Oven Shopping Without Thinking of Sylvia Plath."
Okay.
Even if you get a good deal on stainless steel, the dramatics of the deed are still there. The smile working on commission with food in his teeth, between the incisors like really mowing down. In a suit you know he cries himself to sleep in, practicing confidence in the mirror each morning, rehearsing all the lies he will tell with the head of a mannequin he has stolen from the ladies in lingerie. Edible panties like a tray of brownies at a key party, the swingers of irreconcilable differences trying to get there, the partners of rip you and off billing out at $300 an hour, and they deliver. Everyone delivers, at cost, which means you pay for everything before the skim, but sure, they deliver. Just pick the one you want and imagine it in your kitchen. That is all you have to do. And lay that credit card down, of course. Give us the digits. And your oven will be on the truck with the fridge. They come as a set, like Godzilla and King Kong. In stainless steel, of course, that is all the rage. Like the bipolar bathrooms of his and her sinks. There is no turning back after the Home and Garden Network. People know what they want, and it is exactly what we tell them. And even if they don't have the money, everyone can go on credit. The mob knows that, but this is legal. Still, it is hard to go oven shopping without thinking of Sylvia Plath. For that, they don't have an answer, which is why they will focus on the fridge instead of the stove. Accentuate the positive. Didn't Perry Como have a song about that? And your wife will love it twice as much as she has ever loved you because it comes with a warranty. This is how the machines take over, one CRISPR at a time. No wonder Nikola Tesla chopped off his balls and tried to go back in time, before the Ruskies shot a dog into space so Mars would have fleas without the collars.
Wow. Another very powerful piece. And the imagery.
That's one of those ones I was talking about where you just kind of float around a bit with ideas, right? It's not too structured at all.
No, it's not. Well, look, let's take a brief break, and we'll be right back with Ryan Quinn Flanagan. Anthony Ingram. This is Quintessential Listening Poetry. The call-in number is 646-787-1631. We're here with Ryan Quinn Flanagan, the prolific author, and we're having a good time. We have another caller, Ryan, and I'm going to bring this person on. All right?
Yep.
All right. Area code 310-850. You're on the air.
Hi, Michael. Hi, Ryan. This is Alexis Rome Fancher. Thank you for reading that cool poem for me. Most appreciated.
My pleasure.
Good evening. Good evening.
Good evening.
Do you have a question for Ryan?
Well, I've just been sitting here listening since the top of the show, and I'm so taken with how, he and I are both poets, and yet his process and mine, night and day. I mean, I'm sober and writing 5 hours a day. He does binge writing and drinks his way through it. I don't edit. I mean, he doesn't edit at all, and I edit. I have maybe 10 drafts for a one-page poem, and yet we both end up with quality shit. So it's very interesting. What I'm wondering about is what you're up to next. Oh, and I love your accent. I've never heard you speak before. That Canadian accent, very nice.
Yeah, I've heard there's a Canadian accent. I can't hear it myself, but apparently there is one.
You say things like oot. It's, yeah. Anyway, very cute.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Yeah, what's next?
Yeah.
Always keeping busy. So there's a collection of short stories coming out soon with Alien Buddha Press. There's another poetry book with Alien Buddha Press. There's one coming out with New York Quarterly Books. One with Kevin Ridgway. I'm pretty sure you know him pretty good.
I certainly do. I'm a huge fan, and he's a fabulous human.
Yeah, he's a great guy and a great writer. And just a few other projects. There's always things on the go. I find it's good to keep busy because with mental health issues, if you have too much downtime, you tend to get in trouble. So it's just better to keep writing and keep it creative and safe.
I think it's
like
really so brave, what you do in terms of putting it out there. I think you help a lot of people, both you and Kevin, in the mental health world. I think you give them hope. Very well done.
Thank you. Thanks, Alexis.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Alexis.
You're welcome. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
You
Same
too.
to you. Same to you. We've got another caller, Ryan. You're very popular tonight. All right, hold on 1 second here. Area code 757-376. You're on the air.
Hello, Ryan. How the hell are you, bud?
Hey, John.
I cannot believe you knew who I was just from my voice. I mean, I tried to disguise it. And Michael, great show, by the way.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Maybe you'll be a guest one day.
Well, I would certainly love to. Ryan, I've got to ask you, man, because as you know, I do run your fan club, and I got to ask you, man, one serious question. Does it ever become really difficult because you submit so much to so many places? You got work out all the time, and between that, when you're writing for your publication, and then of course creating the books. Is it ever really is it ever a struggle or anything like that? Because, I write like a book every 7 years. So.
Yeah, the writing part isn't the struggle. That's the enjoyable part, as you know.
Yeah.
We've talked about it. I hate editing. So when you have the books written, then you kind of look at it and you go, oh, great, so now you've done that. So now you get to edit it. So the editing is horrible. To remember all the submissions, I set up a spreadsheet system now, and
I was wondering.
Oh yeah, it's like 60 pages in a spreadsheet, and it's just ridiculous now. So that's not as bad as the editing, though. I just hate the editing, and as you know, and you're the mad editor, so.
Yeah, I know. I love editing. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, the writing, of course, is the most enjoyable part, and that's really what it's about anyway, right? When you make the time to sit down and write and hammer it out. And
No, well, that's yeah. I always wondered about that, man. How you keep track of all those submissions? Because it's like I can't even count that high. That's why I would list all your books on your bio, but I can't count that high. You know that, so we're not going to go with my issue. But anyways, I just wanted to tell you, you're doing a great show, and man, keep keep on going, man. That's all.
All right.
Thanks, man.
Thank you.
You have
Thank
a
you
cool
for calling
poem
in.
to read, don't you?
I didn't hear
you. have a cool poem to read, don't you?
Oh, I didn't. Are we? We can read poems.
If you've got a poem, yes, please.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, then I'll read a very quick one. I am a very terrible reader, but I'll. All right. This is one that's I know good. Ryan digs this, and it's called "Cocktails with the Giant." It's from my first book, Cold Beer Beats a Warm Heart. They say Andre the Giant could easily drink over 100 beers. Throw in a couple bottles of wine and maybe a whiskey or two, you easily had a man whose record could never be touched. His tolerance is the Mount Everest of drinkers. Nobody could match him. No one ever dared to try. He enjoyed a good laugh and was known to pass a huge fart to amuse himself. I believe Bukowski himself wouldn't try to top him. He could hide a beer can in his hand, so imagine what he could do to your skull. Hopefully, if you ever drank with the giant, he picked up the tab. And if ever he passed out on the floor, well, never wake a sleeping giant, let alone a hungover one named Andre. And that's the end of that. So, thank you very much.
Thank you. Andre the Giant, I remember him.
Oh, yeah.
I remember him.
I love this book.
All right.
I used to have that figurine when I was a kid.
Well, thanks for letting me call in. So y'all have a good one.
Thank you. Same to you. Thank you.
All right.
Ryan, please follow that up with some of your work.
Yep, I have one to read back to John.
All right, beautiful.
It's one that he accepted at one of his presses. As I said, he's the mad editor, so he runs. I guess I write books, and he runs magazines. He writes books too, but he runs so many magazines that you can't count. But the biggest monster is called the Rye Whiskey Review, and he accepted this poem at the Rye Whiskey Review. So this is for John. It's called Mint Julep. Mint julep drinks beside you in an old prom dress split at the seams from a highball glass of volcanic activity, and you can smell the lazy bourbon on her breath, the way the shaved ice crowds the lip, climbing up out of the glass like a barrel of monkeys at 10:30 in the morning.
You know, the titles of your poems are amazingly detailed.
Yeah.
What role should the title play in a poem? How much emphasis should be given to the title?
I think a lot. I know some people don't. Some people write poems with no titles or minimal titles. And I always treat the title as it's like like if you're writing a song, it's your hook, right? So the title is the first thing that's going to grab the person's attention, along with, say, if it's a book, the cover. You want really different artwork or whatever, because I treat it like those great album covers from the 1970s, or that you're trying to create, Alice Cooper record where you look at the album cover and it's amazing.
Ryan, are you there? Folks, we are experiencing some technical difficulties. What I'd like to do in the interim, as Ryan pretends to sign back on, I'd like to read a poem really quickly. And The poem is titled Fabric, and I think it fits the theme just in terms of the honesty of poetry. Poetry's honesty, the beginning, the roots of it, and it was written by, again, Lee Hinton, and it was published in the Delaware Poetry Review, May 25th, 2015. All right. My grandfather wore jeans almost every day, dungarees, overalls. He laid bricks on top of bricks through concrete of days. Jeans are honest. This is what my grandfather wore, he said. They remember the weight of the cotton he picked, carry the memory of each ball and bell. He told me his grandfather's stories, describe how red blood becomes brown stains on blue jeans, remembered lashes in the feel of each other's raised scar. My 8-year-old hands fingered the frayed edges that didn't unravel. I saw the lie wash each week's dirt and weave the weaving. My grandfather taught his sons to calculate and measure, cement and sand, rock and water, the right ratios for strength, the right balance for survival. Deep into this life, I consider the fabric of those men, their days of blood and pain, nights of family and honor, cotton and cement binding us across generations. Each morning I look in the mirror and straighten my tie, practice the silk lies I tell myself, pretend that someday I'll be strong. Somehow I'll be that good. So for me, that fits into the theme of tonight's program in terms of our work with Ryan, that it's so important to be real, to be genuine in your work, to speak your truth, whatever that is, to speak your truth. I think Ryan is back with us now. Ryan, are you there?
Yeah, I am. Can you hear me?
Oh, I can hear you now. All right.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah, I don't know what happened. Technology is my friend.
Technology, but we just kept right on going. Kept right on going. Please
That's
share some more of your work. That's right. Please share some more of your work.
Okay. This one's called Coin Laundry. I walk over to the coin laundry without a name, down the street, to listen to the spinning dry cycles. Arms crossed, eyes closed, falling asleep in a cracked blue bucket seat by the door. It is cheaper than cable, and the girls from the peeler joint next door come to wash the cum out of their dainties. They talk about everything. I am almost sleeping, but it is good company. When the machines stop, I get up and leave, walk home in the rain, past the beggars with their hands out, shaking a single wet polystyrene cup out of its last black magic. And this one's called $5,000. $5,000. That is how much the gas chamber at San Quentin cost to build. Made in Denver and transported to the Bay Area to kill all those people. $5,000. It's so efficient, brags the warden. Works every time. He is proud of his $5,000. Money well spent. By the people, for other people. The shackles of the condemned, shuffling off to an appointment they will keep.
I'm still processing the piece of poetry. Again, as I hate to keep saying the word powerful over and over and over again, but it is. I mean, the truth is the truth.
Yeah, I couldn't believe that was from a note I saw where somebody said on a show that they had cost $5,000 and where it was made, and then they had the warden on there, and he was like smiling and proud of the thing, and I couldn't believe that a human would be proud of that, you know.
Yes. Now, you've written in currently in the book, you've written short fiction, short stories.
Yeah.
Am I correct?
Yep.
In what important ways does poetry differ from fiction?
I think creatively it's pretty much the same ideas in that. It's just the way that you express it. I find that mine comes out more in short conversation pieces with the fiction, whereas in poetry there is conversational pieces, but most of them aren't conversations. They're they're actually more image-based, whereas with the fiction, it usually comes from an idea or an idea within a conversation. That's probably the main difference. But artistically, there's probably not too much difference for me.
Okay. Because you've written in so many different genres, what advice would you give a novice poet or author in general about the whole writing process? What's some of your advice?
Write a lot, and
okay.
A lot of it is not going to be very good at the start, of course, because you gotta find your own voice, and also experiment with different forms, find what you like best. Whether it's usually poetry is the best way to start, but some might be into short stories or microfiction or whatever. I wouldn't attempt a novel right off the bat. And some people can, but I know I couldn't. But I would find the parts of poetry or the forms that I found most comfortable, and I would start writing within them. I would look at the writers that are your favorites as well, and then try to work from them originally, and then kind of veer off and find your own voice in the medium that you find speaks best to what you're doing.
Right. I like that. Well, let's take a brief break, and we'll be right back with Ryan Quinn Flanagan. Hello, everyone. I am Michael Anthony Ingram. I'm here with Ryan Quinn Flanagan. I need to share with everyone that Ryan is calling in, not so much calling in, but from a technological perspective, using this system called Direct Connect from Ontario, Canada. He is our first international guest, so that makes him even more special than he already is. He's our first international guest, and I am quite pleased. Ryan, do you belong to any type of writing community?
On the surface, no. When I'm doing my writing, I just do it myself. But I'm connected on social media to all kinds of different writers, editors, fine artists. I mentioned earlier I belong to one. It's the frat. It's basically my frat brothers and sisters. We're just writers who support each other, help each other. We put on readings, and John, who called in earlier, John Patrick Robbins, great writer. He's really the one who heads the show, and Kevin Peary, James D. Casey, Eliana, Alyssa Trivet. They're all members of that. And then also we've talked about the Beautiful Space, which is the mental health initiative through the arts, and it's run by Javed Ahmed and a team there, and some psychiatrists as well. And I'm on the board as well, and I try to help out when I can with the art side of that related to mental illness.
So you read publicly?
Over the computer.
Over the computer?
Yeah.
Because I was going to ask the question, what is the qualitative difference between your speaking voice and your written voice?
Yeah, there's really nothing different. The way I speak is the way I write. It would be like if you were to read it out in a room and then hear me speak, it's the exact same. So I don't use a different voice that way. Yeah, but certainly living up here, I'm pretty isolated. I'm up in the Canadian Shield here, so there's not real any arts community. As we discussed, they just got a library, or what they call a library in the mall, just some soft paperback books. So the arts communities are the ones I've connected with are all over over Facebook and social media and the internet, and that's how I've come to things or people.
Okay. Well, share some more of your work. I'd like to hear more.
This one's called Winter Curfew. The plows are out in force. The politics is never clear, but they try with the roads sometimes. To keep them clear, I mean. And no one can go anywhere. Mail service has been suspended. Even in prison, they get their mail. But I don't have to share a toilet, so there's trade-offs, I guess. This must be how the elderly feel. I must remember that next time I pass Mrs. Evanson in the hall, muttering to herself with her clothes on inside out, always smelling of dog food even though she has no dog. And this one's called How Lovers Become Informants.
All right.
I saw you through window reflection. I saw you scampering along like a bushel of unweaned miseries, your greasy mudflap hair dragging behind you, so hot that I never once imagined the Tower of London, the ludicrous way the cars stopped in front of each other and sat on their horns, chubby chaos pigeons shitting all over the backs of tiny manic legs. I saw Interpol nab your preening lunch hour affections, drag you into the back of an unmarked van and skid away. Your mouth has been extradited. The oath you swore was to her talents and your appetite. The beds you shared, so numerous, poor housekeeping will never be finished.
You know, I recited a piece doing the computer glitch. The piece was titled Fabric. What do you think, and you may not be able to answer this, is the color of poetry's fabric? What do you think that might be? What would that look like? Poetry's fabric.
I always imagine a blue, a strange blue. Yeah, but I don't know why. I can't really explain. That's just the color I see, but I'm sure everybody has a different view on that.
Right.
But yeah, for me, I just imagine this strange shade of blue that's not quite any other shade that you can name. That's how I view it. But
what is it about that shade of blue? What is it about that shade of blue that makes it stand out for you?
I think it's obviously it's blue, so it's sad, but it's not an obvious sad. It's kind of sad but whimsical, like it's unnamed, so that there's a chance to throw in humor there. It's kind of like, life is tragic when you look at it, but as long as you have humor or you inject this type of strange blue, then you have a chance, basically.
All right. Some poets are also active in other creative areas. What are some of your favorite non-poetry or literary activities?
Just reading other poets' works, basically. I don't do painting. I wish I could. I love fine art. I'd love to work at an art gallery and be a curator. That would be a thing. But I don't do film. I can't play music. So basically, for me, it's just writing.
Well, maybe your writing is film. Maybe it's film. And people read it to, again, discover the imagery, the sounds. I'm making all of this up as I go, but I view it as being film. Would you share, as we conclude tonight's program, one more piece?
Yep. This one is for Mark Anthony Rossi at Aerial Chart, and this poem is also very special to me. It's called We Will Meet Again Without Bodies. Freedom is last in line. There is no waiting. I adore you from distant treetops down, the way you have started and can never end. Persevere, my child, beyond all else. We will meet again without bodies. I have raised you up, fine child curious, with all the waters of the tides, given you sky to imagine, love to experience, hurt to endure. Endure, fine child, endure.
Again, you end with another very powerful piece. I'd like to thank you so much for being our guest tonight. Ryan Quinn Flanagan, I'm sure most of your books are found on Amazon.com. Am I correct?
Yes, they are, yeah.
All right, then. So please check out Ryan. I want to thank you so much. I mean, I see now why you're my Facebook friend, because you are my friend. And,
yeah, thanks so much for having me.
I'd like you to consider coming back in the new year. So
Oh, for sure.
Keep that in mind. So to everyone, thank you for listening to Quintessential Listening Poetry tonight, and we'll see you next time. Have a great week. Thanks, everybody. Good night.